He had just minutes left to live. Abandoned. Broken. Unwanted. The shelter staff had made their decision. They were ready to end his suffering, believing he was beyond saving. Then an elderly man walked through the door and did something nobody expected. What happened next left everyone in that room absolutely speechless. The cold metal bars of the small shelter cage rattled as Max shifted uncomfortably on the concrete floor. His fur, once a proud golden brown, was now dull and matted. He had stopped barking weeks ago. Days had blended into nights, and every single morning he watched as other dogs wagged their tails and ran into the arms of happy families. While he remained behind. Unwanted. Forgotten. The shelter was quieter than usual that morning. Staff moved slowly, their hearts heavy, deliberately avoiding his cage. Max tilted his head, sensing something was different. A thin beam of sunlight fell across the floor, and the sharp smell of disinfectant hung in the air. Deep down he could feel it. Today wasn't like the others. Today, something final was coming. In the staff office, a young volunteer whispered to the head caretaker, her voice trembling. "Are you absolutely sure this is it for him?" The caretaker sighed deeply and nodded, glancing at the clock on the wall. "We've done everything we can. No one's coming for him. It's time." Back in his cage, Max let out a low, mournful whimper. His paws pressed against the bars as if he could somehow hold onto life a little longer. The world outside had abandoned him, and all he could do now was wait. The sound of approaching footsteps echoed down the hallway, signaling what he feared was his very last day. Just as the shelter worker reached for Max's leash, the front door creaked open. A soft jingle of the bell announced a visitor. Everyone turned to see an elderly man shuffling inside, his worn red cap tilted slightly, a weathered smile on his face. His name was Henry, a widower who lived alone on the edge of town. Henry's eyes scanned the rows of cages, and for a moment he felt a heaviness settle in his chest. "I'm looking for a friend," he said quietly to the receptionist. She hesitated, unsure if he was serious. Most visitors wanted puppies or energetic dogs. Not an old German shepherd with a broken spirit. Then Henry's gaze landed on Max. The dog didn't move. He just lifted his head slowly and locked eyes with the man. Something unspoken passed between them. Loneliness recognizing loneliness. "Can I meet him?" Henry asked, his voice gentle but firm. The caretaker led him to the cage and slid the door open. Max hesitated, unsure if this was just another false hope. Slowly, he took one shaky step forward. Henry knelt down on the cold concrete floor, extending his wrinkled hand. "Hey buddy," he whispered. Max leaned forward cautiously, sniffing his hand. For the first time in weeks, his tail gave a tiny, uncertain wag. The shelter room fell completely silent, except for the soft sound of Max's cautious steps. Henry slowly sat down on the floor, ignoring the cold seeping through his knees. He didn't rush, didn't call the dog over. He simply waited. In that stillness, Max crept closer, his ears twitching, his eyes locked on the man's face as if searching for something he'd lost long ago. Henry whispered softly, "It's okay. I'm not going to hurt you." His hand remained open, patient. When Max finally pressed his nose against Henry's palm, the old man's heart swelled. It was a simple touch, but it felt like the world had shifted for both of them. One lonely soul recognizing another. Moments later, Henry scratched gently behind Max's ear. The dog leaned into the touch, a soft whine escaping his throat. A caretaker watching from the corner wiped away a tear. She had never seen Max respond to anyone like this. Henry looked up and said, "I think he just chose me." The shelter manager hesitated, her voice careful. "Sir, he's on the list. He's scheduled for tomorrow." Henry's jaw tightened. He looked back at Max, who now rested his head on the old man's lap as if he had finally found safety. "Then take him off the list," Henry said firmly. "He's coming home with me." Henry carried Max's adoption papers in one hand and the leash in the other, but the dog didn't pull or resist. Instead, Max walked calmly by his side, as if he knew he was leaving the shadows behind forever. The old man's car was small, but Max leaped into the back seat without hesitation, curling up as Henry whispered softly, "You're safe now, buddy. You're going home." The drive was quiet, Only the hum of the engine and the occasional sigh from Max. Henry glanced in the rearview mirror and caught the dog watching him with soulful brown eyes. "We're going to take care of each other," he said with a smile. The dog's tail gave the slightest wag, a silent promise of trust. When they arrived at Henry's cozy little house, Max sniffed the porch cautiously and stepped inside. He explored every corner slowly, then returned to Henry, sitting close enough that his fur brushed the man's leg. Henry chuckled softly, lowering himself to the floor to meet the dog at eye level. "You belong here," Henry whispered. Max licked the man's hand, and for the first time in months, Henry felt his house come alive. The silence that had haunted the rooms for so long was now replaced with the quiet warmth of companionship. If this story touches your heart, please share it with someone who needs a reminder that it's never too late for a second chance. The days that followed were nothing short of magical for Henry and Max. At first, Max was cautious, sleeping curled up in the corner of the living room as though he still feared being sent away. But Henry never rushed him. He spoke softly, offering gentle pats and leaving treats on the floor, allowing Max to come closer at his own pace. By the third morning, Henry woke to find Max at the foot of his bed, his head resting on the quilt. The dog's eyes were half closed, but when Henry reached out to scratch behind his ears, Max's tail thumped gently against the sheets. "Good boy," Henry whispered, feeling an unexpected surge of joy in his chest. Henry also noticed changes in himself. The quiet house that had once echoed with loneliness now felt alive with small, happy moments. Paws padding across the wooden floors. The jingle of a collar. Soft sighs as Max napped by the fireplace. Neighbors began stopping by during Henry's morning walks, smiling at the gentle pair. With each passing day, Max grew more playful and confident, while Henry's heart grew lighter. Together, they were healing. Two souls that had been abandoned by the world but had now found each other. One chilly evening, as Henry prepared dinner, he noticed Max pacing near the front door, whining softly. At first, he thought the dog just needed to go outside, but something felt different. Max's movements were restless, his breathing slightly uneven. Henry's heart skipped a beat. "Easy, boy," he murmured, kneeling beside him. He felt Max's fur trembling beneath his palm. A wave of fear washed over him. After everything they'd been through, he couldn't bear the thought of losing his new companion. Without hesitation, Henry called the local vet, his voice shaking. "Something's wrong with Max. Please, can you come?" Within 20 minutes, the vet arrived, kneeling on Henry's living room floor. After a quick examination, she offered a reassuring smile. "He's not in danger," she explained gently. "He's just anxious. Still adjusting. It's like he's afraid this happiness won't last." Henry's chest tightened. He realized Max wasn't just healing physically. His heart still carried deep scars of abandonment. That night, Henry stayed by Max's side on the living room floor, whispering stories and promises that he would never let him go. Slowly, Max's eyes closed and his breathing steadied. Henry knew then that trust wasn't simply given. It was earned. And he would spend every single day proving to Max that he was home for good. The following morning, Henry woke to find Max curled up against his chest, his warm breath rising and falling in peaceful rhythm. For the first time since bringing him home, Max's tail gave a gentle wag as he opened his eyes. It was as if, in that quiet moment, the dog had finally understood. He was safe. He was loved. And he was home. If this incredible story moved you, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more heartwarming true stories that prove love and second chances can heal even the deepest wounds.